This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
It's precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Catherine Pereira and read by Sabrina Zawahir. First, the headlines. The health sector says there is a risk of spreading Delta variant in the country. The fastest vaccination program recorded from Sri Lanka. A plan to introduce a new mixed election system. The fuel minister says there is no fuel shortage in the country. And in world news, Europe flood victims face massive cleanup as waters recede. Now the local news in detail. The public should act in more considerably as there is a risk of spreading Delta variant in the country. Several countries in the world are spreading many variants of COVID. Specialists have pointed out all vaccines brought to the country will be a safeguard from the Delta variant. 7.2 million and 47,000 persons have been vaccinated so far. More than 4.4 million obtained the Sinopharm vaccines. The second dose of it have been taken from more than 1.2 million people. The people who obtained the Sputnik vaccines have exceeded 157,000. The first dose of Pfizer vaccines have been given to around 47,000. It is also expected to provide Moderna vaccines to the people in the future. Meanwhile, Minister Namal Rajapaksa said that Sri Lanka will become the fastest country of providing vaccines in South Asia. The vaccines program is being carried out in the country successfully, covering all districts. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A giant interest rate for your fixed deposit that you deposit this month. Call 0718 800 999.
Continuing local news, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena says that all members of the government party will be voted to defeat the no-confidence motion against Minister Uday Gamampilla. He said the opposition has brought this no-confidence motion as a propaganda program. Ranil Wickramasinghe and the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa are in two different concepts. He also stated regarding the change of election system, it is expected to introduce a mixed voting system for the provincial council election and for the parliamentary elections. Minister Uday Gamampilla says that there will be no fuel shortage in the country. He said there are sufficient stock of petrol for 27 days and diesel for 24 days. Another 25,000 metric tons of diesel unloaded yesterday. He said some groups are propagating false rumours in order to put the government into difficulties. The Ministry of Environment says that 57 million cubic meters of sand is needed for the 13 development projects of the government to be implemented from this year to the year 2025. But only 42 million cubic meters could be supplied. Therefore, Minister Mahinda Amaravira stated that an alternative place should be identified to obtain sand needed for the development projects. At present, 4,000 such places have already been identified. That ends local news. The main news story follows.
An important announcement from HDFC Bank. A giant interest rate for your fixed deposit that you deposit this month. Enjoy special interest rates based on deposit amount and the government security. Call 0718 800 999. HDFC. An important announcement from HDFC Bank. A giant interest rate for your fixed deposit that you deposit this month. Enjoy special interest rates based on deposit amount and the government security. Call 0718 800 999. HDFC.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddha Lepa Veda Mahatmya.
Police said an accomplice of the deceased drug trafficker and underworld figure Makandure Madush, who is linked to a number of crimes, including 6 murders, died after being shot by a special task force in Sidua. Police spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said the STF personnel have used force while searching a vehicle following a tip-off last night. Following the shooting, 44-year-old Lalit Vasanta Pinto, who was a wanted criminal on board the vehicle, sustained injuries and died soon after being admitted to the Nigambo hospital. It was revealed that the deceased, a resident of Sidua, has been linked to a number of crimes and 6 murders in Sidua, Vattala, Matara, Akurasa, Katunayaka and Ragama police divisions since 1991. Meanwhile, a 30-year-old suspect, the brother-in-law of underworld figure Ran Malli, who is operating from Dubai, had been arrested with 13.9 million rupees in cash buried inside a house at Hiripitia in Pannipitia. That was a main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
In Watchlight, it has been reported that the traditional puppet art in the southern province is being declining. This field was popular centering Ambalangore area and among foreign countries as well. The craftsmen who are engaged in this field are economically suffering due to the lack of attention to develop this field. They request the relevant authorities to take measures to protect the traditional puppet art. That came to you in Watchlight. A bulletin of world news follows. Taking a look at the headlines of the world news, Europe flood victims face massive cleanup as waters recede. Wife of assassinated Haiti president returns from US after surviving attack. Cuba's president slams social media hatred after protests. Now the world news in detail. Residents in regions of Germany and Belgium worst affected by recent floods have begun the huge task of clearing their neighborhoods as the waters begin to recede. The scale of the damage is becoming clear as rescue crews continue to look for victims. At least 170 people have died, and with many still missing, the death toll could rise further. And there are fears that a dam weakened by the floods could burst. Inspectors say large parts of the Steinbachal Dam, southwest of the German city of Bonn, have come away, leaving it extremely unstable. The widow of Haiti's assassinated president has returned to the Caribbean nation after being treated in Florida for wounds suffered in the attack. Marty Moyes was seen wearing an arm sling and a bulletproof vest after arriving by plane at Port-au-Prince airport yesterday. Her husband, President Moyes, was killed by assassins in their home on 7th of this month. Mrs. Moyes was injured in the attack and was flown to a hospital in Miami, Florida, for treatment. In a tweet, Haitian officials said Mrs. Moyes had returned to the country to prepare for her husband's funeral next week. The Cuban government held a massive rally in the early hours of last morning on Havana's Malecon, the city's famed Corniche, at the end of a week of unrest that spurred a slew of international criticism. Crowds for the act of revolutionary reaffirmation rally in the Cuban capital, which is the government said numbered 100,000, arrived before the sun rose and spilled onto the highway near the United States Embassy. Other rallies were held across the country. That ends world news, and prior to concluding the world news, the headlines once again. Europe flood victims face massive cleanup as waters recede. Wife of assassinated Haiti president returns from US after surviving attack. Cuba's president slams social media hatred after protests. With that, we conclude the world news. Next up is the development news.
Development News is brought to you by Quality Matters Than Price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, #1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
The construction of the proposed walking path project was launched yesterday under the Bandarawela Town Development Plan. This is the third project is being implemented under this plan. 110 million rupees will be spent for the project. That was the development news. Next up is the sports news.
Development news was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB 500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB 500, #1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
In sports news, the first ODI between Sri Lanka and India will be played today at 3 p.m. at the R. Premadasa Stadium. Several youth players are included in the Sri Lankan team. It is presumed Pathum Nisanka, Dhananjaya Lakshan, Minol Banuka, Ashen Bandara and Banuka Rajapaksa will join the Sri Lanka team today. The Tokyo Olympics have registered its first COVID-19 case in the Olympic village 6 days before the Games open, the organizers have said. Tokyo 2020 CEO Toshiro Moto confirmed yesterday that a visitor from abroad who is involved in organizing the Games had tested positive. He would not reveal the person's nationality, citing privacy concerns. That was sports news. Next up is the business news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Chili cultivation has been carried out in 200 acres of farmland in Kandakadu Manning Farm in Vaunia and Andiyampuliankulam Farm by the Agriculture and Livestock section of the Sri Lanka Army. The chili products is to be distributed among the people through Satosa and cooperative outlets. That ends business news.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news. Courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
12 organic fertilizer production villages will be launched in the Hambantota district. The women of the farming families has been selected in this regard. The machinery for this purpose will also be given for them. The Suryavawa Viryagama has become the first village as the production of organic fertilizer. Such villages will also be set up in Lunugamvehera, Tissamaharama, Ambalantota, Angunukula Palassa, Thangala, Beliatta, Katuana, Valasmulla, Okavela and Viraketia Divisional Secretariat Divisions. That ends Economic News.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Finally, it's a look at the weather report. The Met Department says showers will occur at times in Sabaragamu and central provinces. Several spells of showers will occur in Western Province and in Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly strong gusty winds up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour at times are likely to across the island, and strong gusty winds up to 60 kilometers per hour at times can be expected in the western slope of Central Hills. That was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. The health sector says there is a risk of spreading Delta variant in the country. The fastest vaccination program recorded from Sri Lanka. A plan to introduce a new mixed election system. The fuel minister says there is no fuel shortage in the country. With that, we conclude the news.